Joining me now, Martin Fletcher, former NBC News foreign correspondent and bureau chief in Tel Aviv, and author of Walking Israel, A Personal Search for the Soul of a Nation. Martin, as always, thank you very much for coming to the show. The U.S. ambassador to the UN, Linda Thomas-Greenfield, stressed how urgent this resolution was to alleviate the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. So then why did the U.S. abstain from the vote?
Well, the U.S. wants more than just that. The U.S. is insisting on backing Israel, which says they only will agree to a ceasefire when they've won the war. The United States is not apparently pressing Israel for a ceasefire because they understand that if there's a ceasefire now, then basically Hamas wins, and then there will be another war down the road. It's just kicking the can down the road is what a ceasefire now would mean. And so the United States is backing Israel, and by the way, losing a lot of popularity, obviously, around the world at this very difficult time. And let me just say, Jonathan, about Bethlehem. You know, I've been to Bethlehem on Christmas 28 times. This is about as grim as it's ever been. So this is a very difficult time for Christians in the Holy Land, for everybody in the Holy Land. And in Gaza, you know, out of the population in Gaza of 2.3 million, there's 1,000 Christians who are trying to celebrate Christmas at this time. Very difficult for everybody. And that's one reason why the United States is backing Israel. They want this to end.
You know, Martin, what do you make of the phone call yesterday between President Biden and Prime Minister Netanyahu, considering the reports of a strained relationship?
Well, they've been speaking almost every day, we're told, since the war began. And President Biden's people said that he did not press Israel for a ceasefire at this time. So there's clear backing for the Israeli position in public, but privately, of course, and increasing. I'm in public, I have to say, the United States is demanding that Israel changes the way it fights the war. The bombing from the air has created extraordinary numbers of Palestinian dead and wounded, which the number now appears to be about 20,000, including fighters, of course. They say 8,000 of these casualties are children. So the United States is pressing Israel to change the way it's fighting, to be more specific on the ground, targeted operations against Hamas leaders, against Hamas targets, and trying to reduce the number of civilian casualties. But Israel is saying we're fighting a war in which Hamas is hiding behind the civilians. The reason there's so many civilian casualties, says Israel, is because Hamas is hiding behind behind its own civilians. You know, Israel is fighting a war in which it's trying to protect its civilians, while Hamas is fighting a war in which it's using its civilians to defend itself. It's an impossible situation. Israel cannot win a war of information or propaganda, but by continuing to fight, they're hoping to win the war on the ground to defeat Hamas so that there won't have to be another war in another few years.
Martin, what about the reports, I think at least a week ago, that the United States was pushing, well, President Biden was pushing Prime Minister Netanyahu to end offensive operations by the end of the year. Is that still the goal? Is that still possible? A possibility,
totally,
I mean.
Yeah, no, Jonathan, completely impossible. By the way, end of the year, we're just talking about another 5 or 6 days, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, Israel's saying they're going to need another 5, 6 months, even a year to finish Hamas in Gaza. So Israel wants as much time as it can get to continue fighting. But in order to get that extra time, it needs to reduce civilian casualties. Otherwise, President Biden and the United States cannot continue to support Israel. That's clear. And Israel knows that. But what Israel is saying is they need another 4 to 6 weeks, maybe 2 months to continue the fighting as it is. And then they can change into a more targeted, limited series of operations on the ground, looking for the tunnels, looking for the Hamas leaders, destroying the munitions, killing the Hamas fighters. Then it can become more targeted. Then there will be fewer civilian casualties. But whether America can give Israel that time, that's what those conversations between President Biden and Prime Minister Netanyahu are all about.
Let me get you on 2 things before I let you go. One, where are things on release of the hostages?
Frankly, nowhere right now, Jonathan. That's a sad thing. I mean, Israel's insisting, when Israel proposed a pause just now, which Hamas declined, Israel was saying, we will stop fighting for 1 week and you would release 40 hostages. Pretty simple deal. And, of course, other elements of humanitarian aid. But right now, Hamas said no. Hamas said we will not release any hostages until there is a complete ceasefire. So that really bodes very ill for the hostages still in the control of Hamas.
And on that point, does it seem like Hamas even wants a deal?
Yeah, Hamas definitely wants a deal. Hamas wants a complete end to the fighting. That's the deal that Hamas wants. That's the deal that Israel cannot give Hamas, even at the cost of what's happening to the hostages. Israel says we must continue fighting, and Hamas says we will not release any hostages until there is no fighting, until it's all over. So Hamas wants a deal, but that deal would give complete victory to Hamas, and that's not what Israel is prepared to do.
And so the fighting must continue. I remember at the beginning of this war, Israeli Defense Forces were telling people in northern Gaza to go to southern Gaza to escape the shelling and the bombing that was happening there. Now the shelling and the bombing is happening in southern Gaza. You just said a moment ago, the Israelis would like to have, Israeli Defense Forces would like to have 6 more months to a year. My question is, where do the people in southern Gaza go, especially when Egypt is not keen on opening its borders to refugees from Gaza?
Yeah, well, Jonathan, if you remember, in the beginning of the war, everybody was saying that Israel's forcing the Palestinians to leave northern Gaza. And we were also reporting then there's nowhere to go. In fact, they went to the south. There was somewhere to go. So in the south of Gaza now, there are areas that Israel is saying, if you go to the beach area of Gaza, if you go to the eastern side of Gaza where there are large agricultural fields, then we will fight in the center of, where the towns are of Khan Yunis and Rafah, especially those towns. So, but what's happening is that the Palestinians are not going to those areas. They're staying in the towns and around the towns. And again, this question arises, is Hamas telling the Palestinian people to stay in the towns because that way they're acting as human shields for the Hamas fighters? Or is there genuinely nowhere to go? So that's what the humanitarian aid issue is all about. It's all about bringing in tents for the people to live in, food and medicine for the people to use, to eat, and to help themselves with. But it's in a tiny area. I mean, consider this: there were 2.3 million Gazans in an area of 139 square miles. That's all. 25 miles from the northern tip to the southern tip. Now you've got almost all of those 2.3 million, say about 2 million, in only half of Gaza. Mm-hmm. So it does seem there is nowhere to go. There are areas that are empty where large numbers could go. But either way, however you look at it, this is a terrible situation. More and more Palestinians will die. The war needs to end as quickly as possible. And there is one way for it to end, by the way. Hamas could simply release the hostages and say, okay, the end of the fighting. And Israel would then be faced with a dilemma of do they continue fighting or not? So really, there is a way to end the fighting now, but no one is eager to do it. I mean, the Palestinian civilians are paying the price, as always.
Martin Fletcher, I wish people in power were listening to your idea. Thank you very much for coming back to the Sunday Show. The title of your book is Walking Israel: A Personal Search for the Soul of a Nation.